Okay guys, so in this video I need to address the big problem with copywriting in our industry and really explain the way I'm going to be teaching copywriting to you in this section, because what the knee-jerk, what people want, what people think is the way to write a long-form sales webinar or a long-form sales video is you follow a step-by-step templated script. And if you say the right combination of words in the right order, people are going to take out their wallets and buy from you. This all really stems also from the ClickFunnels group and the perfect webinar script. Now, look, I think Russell's an absolute genius, and the reason why he can sell is the stuff I'm going to cover right here. And the fact that he made any script that people can copy at any level of scale or any lower level of scale and works, awesome. I think it's a good script. The fundamentals and everything are there. But the problem is it has nothing to do with the script, because the script is just an order of words and slides and what to say on this and that and that. And if you're doing that in the first place, you're already dead, because it's not going to work in the scenario we need it to work in for us to be able to scale ads. So look, the way we scale ads is we have to be able to sell to people that don't want to buy. That's where the magic comes from. That's why we can have ads that are profitable, because you have to think about it, when people are bidding on ads, they pay what the traffic is worth. And since most people can't convince people who are not willing to buy, the traffic is worth, let's say, $5 an opt-in to them. Now, if our copywriting is above and beyond, and we can convince people that we're not going to buy, that no one else can convert into converting, suddenly our value of the traffic is $10. So then we're paying the market value of $5, we're making $10. This is all scaling is. You have to be able to get better numbers than everybody else, and you have to be able to make more from the traffic than other people are. That's how you do it, because people are bidding what they can afford, and you have to be able to, in order for us to make money here, we have to be able to make more than people can afford. Okay? So we can't be paying our value per the leads, and so we have to be able to convince people that other people can't convert. And we have to do that with really good copywriting. We have to do that with really good selling. Now, the problem is, whenever you're using any script, it's not Russell's script or anything like that. When you're using any script and you're just going through the motions of repeating words at people, you're not going to ever achieve deep conversion. You're not ever going to be able to do that regardless, because you fundamentally are lacking understanding of the customer. If you understand the customer and what they need, you don't need a script. You don't need what to put on slide A. You don't need what to put on slide B. You don't need what bullet points to fill in. You don't need to have a way to start off the webinar and say who this is for and who this is not for, and the same stuff that everybody goes to in their same webinars. On another front, if you are going through a script, one of the reasons I think this kills people more than anything is because when you go through a script, you come off extremely not knowing what you're doing. It's very clear that you're repeating words that are not your own, and you come off inauthentic and untrustworthy. When you are also using a script, what happens is when you're going through the motions, you're not able to really connect with the person. You're not able to really speak to the person, and so you're going to overlook a lot of the ways you need to be talking to the person. I'll explain that more here in a second. And when you do this, you come off not salesy, but inauthentic, just like a person you would see on a TV commercial. You're not a real person, so there's no connection made, there's no rapport achieved, and the person doesn't really feel, when you're telling them the stories that you're telling them, that they're not going to have the emotional turmoil needed to create the pain and then the desire for our solution. And then finally, this is just really bad. If you're in the business niche or the make money online niche where people are regularly seeing webinars, you start this shit off with the same exact words that everybody else is. Everybody already knows what's going on here. They know they're just going to get some BS webinar that doesn't make any sense and isn't going to give them any value, and then you're going to sell them something. They already know what's going on. You might as well just, like, it's like trying to throw a surprise birthday party where you have watch out for the surprise birthday party, watch out for the surprise birthday party sign out in front of the house. Obviously, the surprise isn't going to be too effective, you think? So here's what you need to do, and here's the shift you need to make when it comes to copywriting. Copywriting, the words always change. The presentation always changes, but the pattern that we follow in persuading people never changes. And so if you understand the customer and you understand who they are, you're going to be following the same exact pattern of selling every single time. That never changes. And if you understand the customer, it's quite easy to write a copy around that pattern that we're going to be getting into. Because really convincing people into buying something is actually a really simple process. Okay? You build rapport the entire way through, but you focus on that big time at the beginning. You cause pain. You remove limiting beliefs. And then you create desire for your solution. Okay, this is how you close someone that is not interested in buying. This is how you close someone who's not interested in buying. When most people, they just start right here. Okay, and then we go through a very specific close sequence. But a close sequence is easy. Okay, you can use a script for that. You can't use a script for these things. Because when you are speaking to a certain market or demographic or customer, you have to get them. There are certain things that will need to be said sometimes, and certain things that don't need to be said other times, depending on who you're talking to. There are certain things and types of communication you need to know by default. So for example, if I'm running a webinar, let's look at a few different examples. If I'm running a webinar to people that are trying to lose weight, they probably never jumped on a webinar before. So I need to address what a webinar is and how it's going to work when they come on. If I'm selling to a person who's going to make money online next year, they've seen a webinar before, I need to address that they probably have attended 16 different webinars and they think they're all BS at the beginning of the webinar. Okay? I need to be showing certain types of doing certain types of things when it comes to rapport on a Make Money Online webinar, and I need to be doing certain types of things on a weight loss webinar to build a rapport. You have to know what the person is doing. Let me explain another example of this. So for example, in the Shopify webinar, one thing we have to take a lot of time to do is explain what Shopify actually is and show them the websites and actually show them how it works. Because they can't envision what Shopify is in their heads. They don't know about that. Whereas if we're doing a weight loss webinar, people have been eating their entire lives. We don't need to explain to them how to eat. So this section of the Shopify webinar that would take about 20 minutes to accomplish would only take 1 minute over here in the weight loss webinar. And so what you have when you have people doing scripts is they go and do a weight loss webinar where they include this, or they skip over this in the weight loss webinar. Because they don't understand where the person is, they don't understand where the person's brain is, and they don't understand which blanks need to be filled in and which blanks don't need to be filled in. And then so this creates the whole entire thing. You see constant groups. Hey, what time does my payment button need to come out at? Well, if you skip this right here in Shopify, if it comes out 20 minutes earlier, payment button doesn't matter. No one's going to buy because they don't understand what you're selling. Whereas if you spend 20 minutes right here explaining how to eat a food that people already understand, it's going to hurt your buy button. So right here, you definitely want the buy button to come out later. Right here, you want the buy button to come out right here because they don't need to have this part of it. You want the buy button to come out as soon as possible after the person's been thoroughly conceptualized, after we've molded them into a place where they are able to be closed at, where they are capable of being closed. And so when we're doing copywriting, throughout this process, I'm going to give you scripts. I'm going to show you step by step how to go and write your script. That being said, we need to focus far more on understanding why the words are being said. When you understand why the words are being said and what phases of conceptualizing a person, which if you're kind of unfamiliar on what that term means, think of the movie Inception. We're going to go in there, we're planning ideas, pains, and beliefs, and removing beliefs without telling the user to do so, without telling the person we're selling to do so. We're changing their mind very, very, very subtly. And if you understand the phases of conceptualizing a person, it's easy as day to see why a script is written a certain way. It's easy as day to see what a person is doing when they're selling. You can go out there and you don't even need a script. You just say, oh, I need to achieve this, I need to achieve this, I need to achieve that. And then the key comes from understanding the person who's not going to buy. And then thinking as we go through this, where would this person's brain be at in this part of the sales process, and how can I counter that? And then when you start thinking like that, copywriting becomes easy and you become 10 times more effective. And the most powerful thing is when you are using a script, the emotional turbulence goes out the window. Okay? Look, what causes people to buy anything is never logic or thinking. If you've ever read the book Persuasion, I believe this is what it is, or Influence, there's a chapter in the book where they will talk about how a certain how baby chicks will start nuzzling and acting a certain way if they hear a certain sound from their mother. And so they put a little box out there. They just put a big red box that started playing the sounds of the mama chicken, and the chicks would come and start nuzzling it, and they would follow it around like it was their mother. And you're thinking, oh man, that's it. Those things are programmed. It was the stupidest programming ever. It's the same exact thing with humans. It's just a little bit more steps involved to get someone to follow something around. And so you have to understand that the way our minds decide to do something and the way we justify our thoughts is through emotion. Let me explain. So the way the human brain, the reason how we learn lessons is what's occurring, what thoughts are occurring, plus emotion. So if you can think about like a deep lesson you learned on your life, maybe the first time you touched a stove, or let's say that the first time you got punched in the face for being a smartass or something like that. Think about something in your life that was really painful and you will never do again. So I remember a very specific instance when I was like 20-something years old, and I thought I was really smart, and I started chewing out this lawyer on the phone who was like 45. He just went absolutely insane on me. He was like threatening to sue me, going absolutely nuts. I was like, oh my God, and I've never been so humiliated or yelled at in my life. And to this point, now when I chat with people, I'm very reserved before I ever make threats or come swinging at them. I make sure I know every single thing the person is capable of throwing at me before I swing at them. Okay? I very art of war it. So why do I do that? It's because what was occurring right then, the thoughts plus the experience, plus emotion equals the depth of the lesson, the depth of the understanding, and the depth of basically how we're going to change our lives. If you have thoughts and experience without emotion, the brain doesn't adapt to it. That's how the brain programs. That's how emotion is what the brain decides to program things around. That's it. That's what emotion is there for. So when you feel deep pain, what your brain is going to do is it's going to look at the thoughts and experiences that are occurring and say, don't do these anymore. When you're feeling deep amounts of joy or pleasure, your brain is going to look at the thoughts and experiences and do these things more and more. That's why cell phones are so damaging to people's minds, because what happens is it releases dopamine and positive emotions, and it connects it to the thoughts and experience. Because the routine to get to those positive emotions and dopamine is so short, people end up going in this loop on their phone, and we're just like the chicks who are going up to the box. We have this little glowing device in our hand where we are consistently going to keep coming back to it, because we're just functionally we're just a programming subroutine. That's all that's happening right there. We get programmed to do that because of how the brain works with that. But it's the same thing with pain, and it's the same thing with emotions. And that's why when we're selling, what we must focus on is getting people to think the thoughts that we want to have, see the beliefs logically that we agree with, and then feel deep emotion around those. That's how we embed things in people's head without needing to tell them or sell them anything. That's exactly how we do that. So people think, oh, people buy through emotions. You got to be people. No, you got to program their mind. That's all you got to do. You have to program their mind. This is exactly how the brain programs itself. Okay? If you've ever done anything bad in your life, but you didn't have an emotional response to it, or something bad happened, you didn't have an emotional response, you probably don't remember it. We remember things by emotion. And that's how the brain, and that's why we get afraid of certain things. For example, I'll give you one last example. My mother was terrified of cockroaches. Whenever one would come into the room when I was a young child, she would scream and lose her damn mind. To this day, I still feel a huge fear in the pit of my stomach. I don't freak out, but I feel a huge fear in the pit of my stomach whenever I see a cockroach, because that exact same thing. My brain got programmed by the thoughts and experience on how to react to something that makes no sense. Okay, so you can see it doesn't involve any logic whatsoever. It involves the emotions plus the thoughts and experiences that were occurring at the time. And so if we make people think certain things and feel emotions at the same time, they're going to change. Their programming of their mind is going to change. And that's what we're trying to accomplish in this order. Okay, this is what copywriting is. We make people feel positive emotions and release themselves with rapport, so we can start molding them. If we don't have rapport, the person can't be molded. We then make them see the world that they currently believe exists and feel massive pain because they think it's wrong. We then make them feel massive amounts of pain. Now that they have pain to move and change right here, we then remove the beliefs that we need to close them. Then what we need to do is we need to create desire by reinforcing more joyful, positive emotions while making them see the world in the way that we do. There isn't anything else to it. You create pain to change, you remove beliefs that would stop them from moving forward in our direction, and then you create the desire while triggering massive emotion the entire time through stories. This is why storytelling is so effective, because stories involve emotions. They create a loop that we have to solve and fix, because the human brain, all it wants to do is figure out patterns. It wants to look at a pattern and figure out how it works. That's all we do. That's why when you see a new person's face, that's why when you're walking through a new area, maybe you've gone traveling, why you feel more invigorated. Why do new songs sound interesting to you? Because the human brain wants to find patterns, and it loves decoding patterns and then putting them in a box and saying, this is how the world works. That's why something gets boring to you. And that's why your brain is fascinated with beautiful patterns. Okay? Certain types of patterns. So again, when we're telling stories, we're opening patterns up that trigger emotions that have a lesson embedded inside of them. And when you put a lesson combined with emotions, that's when people change. That's why people can learn more from watching the Hunger Games than they can from reading a book. Okay, a book about, I don't know, science or something like that, whatever. Stories are how you get people to feel. It's how you get people to pay attention as well, because it opens a pattern. And so this is what we want. If you have to think about it. People can go and sit through a 2.5-hour movie. Remember Lord of the Rings was like 3 hours long. People sit through it, no problem. If we can get the same exact thing going with our sales pitches, and we get people crying at the end of it, we get people feeling stuff the entire way through, and make it feel like they're not being pitched to, that's when copywriting works. And that's what we're going to try and achieve with our scripts. This is how we get people to convert on long-form webinars. This is how we get people that we're not going to buy to buy. And if you are going out there and just following a damn word-for-word script, you're not going to achieve any of these things. In fact, most scripts out there focus on telling people how they should change, or giving like some really half-ass story. You can't tell a bad story. You can't tell a story that doesn't speak to the person's individual pains, and it takes a lot of time to really figure out how to really cause pain to them. You can't do that with the script. You can't. You have to know the customer, and you have to understand exactly what buttons to press, and only you can understand those buttons. Okay, and so that's why the diamond exercises are valuable. So I just wanted to point this out, because as we go through this, we're going to be focusing far more on where the person's brain is than where we are word for word in our script. Okay? So let's begin.